Going live.
Welcome to the second try for our 23rd episode of Black Dance Stories. Thank you all for staying. Here's a note about why all of these people, these beautiful people, are here. Our dance world was pummeled by COVID-19, and Black dance artists are finding ways to talk about life during this time. Our world was further turned upside down after horrible events ensued nationally and globally, bringing attention yet again to the need for the Black Lives Matter movement. Black dance artists have not been quiet. Black dance artists have been doing the work. Black dance artists continue to make work. To stay involved, we hold these weekly impromptu discussions and tell stories. Black dance stories. This is one action, and we promise to stay involved. We, right here, are a community working together to support, uphold, highlight, and celebrate Black creatives. Tonight is our 23rd episode of what we hope will be many stories told in the artist's own voices. Thank you so much for making time to witness. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Please help to spread the word about our special time together. Tonight, it's Danelle Morgan and Jawolle Willa Jo Zollar's turn. Please meet some folks from our ever-growing BDS team. I will go first. I am Charmaine Warren. I am a Jamaican. I am the great-granddaughter of Ida Boyd, granddaughter of Solomon Golson and Ruby Chapman, and one of 9 children by Theophilus Warren and my 94-year-old mother, Pearline Warren, who lives in Jamaica. I am a non-disabled Black woman. With the utmost respect to the Native people, I acknowledge that I live on the stolen land of the indigenous Lenape people, now known as Montclair, New Jersey, with my husband, Tony Turner. Our daughter, Ashay Turner, a Black ballerina with locks, is in her junior year at Boston Conservatory. I have locks that fall to my shoulders. I'm wearing a Black turtleneck and large, colorful earrings. Behind me are photos of our family, a large plant, a lamp, and African masks. We are fixing to close out 2020. Yes! Happy Black Dance Stories Thursday to our old and new friends. Thank you for being patient with us today. We can't wait to see you all in the chat. Another special welcome and thanks to the artists that have been with us from the beginning, friends, community activators on screen, and those watching who make this week happen. I turn it over to Kimani.
Thank you, Charmaine, and welcome back, everyone. Thank you for staying through the technical difficulties. So I love to start this episode again with Sabella Grimes's mama's, Gloria Grimes's words, delicious, delightful dancing night, especially tonight with Jawole and Danelle. Can't wait. The importance of acknowledging our familial and dance legacies is an essential tradition. With deep respect and honor, I want to acknowledge the Lenape people whose stolen land I am zooming from, currently known as the Village of Harlem. I am a Black non-disabled woman and I live with my 9-year-old son. I am sitting in my dining room. I have a golden low-cut hairstyle. I'm wearing a peach and white long sleeve shirt, trying to bring the warmth in, with large silver hoop earrings. I am the granddaughter of Lucille Madison, English professor. I teach because of her. Daughter of Ronald Augustus Fowlin, Jamaican warrior and gourmet chef, and Anne Fowlin, rebel and Renaissance woman. I dance because of them. My son Tamayo keeps me present, and I am constantly in awe of him as this young, blossoming visual artist. With that, I will pass it on to Nick.
Thank you, Kimani. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicholas Xavier Hall. I'm Haitian American. I am a non-disabled Black man. My pronouns are he, him, his. I am the grandson of Gertha Farr, Jean-Claude Hall, Jacques Arnold Nicholas, and Marie Violette Alexandre. I was born in Brooklyn to Sheila and Curtis Hall. My family, including my sisters Isabella and Victoria, now live in Montclair, which is on the stolen land of the indigenous Lenape people. I am also a recent graduate of the Fordham Ailey BFA program. I dance because it reminds me to keep dreaming. I'm in a white room wearing a gray sweater. Behind me is a mirror, a TV, and a painting. I'm gonna pass things over to Cynthia.
Thank you, Nick. Happy 23 BDS, everyone. So my name is Cynthia Tate. I am the daughter of Walter Tate and Greta Shaw Tate from New Orleans, Louisiana. I am blessed to be the publicist for this fabulous community. I am a non-disabled Black woman coming to you from Queens, New York on stolen Lenape land. Tonight, I am wearing a blue head wrap with floral accents, gold-studded earrings, a light denim top, button-up top, and red lipstick. I'm gonna pass it on to Gabe now.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Gabriel Decoladenu, son of William Decoladenu and Diane Decoladenu from Maryland. I'm currently also on the stolen land of the Lenape people in Brooklyn, New York. I am sitting in my apartment. I'm wearing a blue hoodie, and I am also the technical advisor for Black Dance Stories, and I hope you guys have a great time tonight. And I'm going to pass it to Caitlin.
Hi everybody, my name is Caitlin. I am the video tech for BDS. I am the daughter of Margaret Chandler and Jeff Chandler from Nashville, Tennessee, and I am currently on the stolen land of the Lenape people in Brooklyn, New York, and feel very lucky always to be a part of this community. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Tony.
Thank you, Caitlin. I am Tony Turner, graphic artist for Black Dance Stories and partner in time to Charmaine Warren, your fearless leader here. I am the son of Joy Williams and Wanza Turner, who Joy from Bermuda and Wanza from, I'm told, Ohio. And my father was a graphic artist, and so I've walked in his footsteps. I'm sitting on the stolen land from the Lenape people, stained with the blood and sweat of my ancestors as they helped build this country. And I'm wearing a black shirt with black and white stripes, and I am a non-disabled African-American male. It's just great to be part of this episode 23. Wow, it's still going and it's going strong and it's gonna go stronger. Black Dance Stories.
All right, you said it, and we will keep it going, Tony. So I also want to say that we have Renee Redding Jones as our Director of Development. So I want to give her a shout out too. Please, please, please consider donating. We want to keep this going, as Tony said, for many, many, hopefully years to come, if not here online, in person, right? But we need the help of your donations. And with that, I will pass it back to Nick.
Thank you. So a big part of Black Dance Stories is the community that we build. And so we want to emulate that again by everyone saying hi in the group chat, say hello, drop your name, say hello to your neighbor, drop an interesting fact, just some kind of interaction. Also, while you're there, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a goal of making it to 1,000 subscribers. Also leave a like. Follow us on Instagram at Black Dance Stories. Follow us on Twitter at BLK Dance Stories. Like us on Facebook and follow. We have a lot of social media, so make sure you're liking all of it. But with that, I'm going to suggest that we toast to Black Dance Stories. So grab a glass of water, a cocktail, glass of wine, whatever makes you happy. But cheers to Black Dance Stories.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So I'd like to say before we start, our BDS team will continue to stand in solidarity with our sisters and brothers in Africa and all over the world with all those who want an immediate end to systemic racism. The ongoing instances of police brutality, the need for support from Black dance stories and the larger community. Please. And with that, I pass it back to you, Nick.
Thank you. We also want to acknowledge the growing severity of the COVID-19 pandemic. We want to remind all of our followers to wear masks and tell their loved ones to wear masks. Just keep safe, stay strong. We're in it for the long run. I'm going to pass things over to Charmaine.
Wow, we're in it for the long run, no kidding. And we're gonna be stronger, you all, by being here. Take that breath, right? Take that breath. I'm watching Caitlin's eyes go back and forth doing, as what is Caitlin said, I have so many buttons to press. Thank you all. They're gonna say goodbye for a while, but they're here. Even though you don't see them, they're here. Nick and Kimani will come back, but thanks, Tony. Thanks, Cynthia. Caitlin doesn't go anywhere. Thanks, Gabe. Website builder, boom. All right. See you in a little bit, Nick and Kimani. And Danelle, come on in.
Hi there.
Danelle, oh my gosh, cheers.
Cheers, Charmaine. Thank you so much for having me. The honor
Oh,
is
you're welcome.
all mine. I'm completely humbled.
Let's hope that all of our friends are here now and that mix up did whatever it did, but you're here, yay.
I'm so happy to be here. A little nervous, but
yeah. And, don't let me go check the chat and everybody say, we got you. Black Dance Stories, we hug people.
Yeah, it's our community. It's beautiful.
So introduce yourself and then we're here for you.
All right, my name is Danelle Morgan. I am currently residing on the Upper West Side of New York City, stolen land from the Lenape. I am from Highland Park, New Jersey, also stolen land from the Lenape. I am the granddaughter of Avon and Alice Morgan on my father's side. They are Harlem, New York, born and raised, also Lenape land. And on my mother's side, Marion Laurie and Maurice Fleetwood. We recently, a fun fact about my mom's side of the family, she recently reconnected with her father's side of the family, Maurice Fleetwood. And as we've sort of begun to dig and find that side of the family, we learned that my great-great-grandmother, so his grandmother, was actually a tap dancer. So we finally found the artist in the family because we knew it must be somewhere. So we found that on my mother's father's side. Both my parents, Bruce and Deborah Morgan, are born and raised in Harlem as well, Lenape land. And they had me, and I have an older brother named Bruce, who is in Brooklyn, New York, also stolen land from the Lenape. I'm a Black American woman. I have, I'll say like a caramel complexion now, depending on the time of year. I have black curly hair, it's out. I have medium gold earrings. I'm wearing a pale green jumpsuit. Behind me is a red brick wall, a bass guitar, and a photo of our forever president, Mr. Barack Obama. Okay, so you want me to talk a little bit about me and my career?
Shame on me to ask that.
Well, I'm just so honored and so humbled to be here as a young dancer who is, sort of still finding her way and still learning things. So I feel like I'm so in the beginning, so it seems a little, it's difficult to talk about my career as I still feel like I'm just getting started. But I started dancing when I was about 4 years old at a small studio in New Jersey. Basically, I was a kid with a lot of energy, so my parents wanted to put that energy somewhere, and they put me in dance classes, which I immediately took to. And I sort of quickly grew out of that studio. It was a small dance studio, and the owner actually understood that maybe my talent was a little bigger, and so I always say she kicked me out of the studio, but she sent me to the Ailey School. So about my junior year in high school, I started commuting to the Ailey School, where I did the junior division program there. And then I continued on there into the Ailey Fordham BFA program. And that's where I met the lovely Charmaine. She was my dance history professor. And it was during my time in the BFA program where they actually hosted a workshop with the Radio City Rockettes. And so from my old studio days, I had a pair of tap shoes, hadn't really studied it in a while, but I decided to dust off the tap shoes, go to this Rockette workshop. I heard it was like a cute gig to have, and I heard it was easy. So I went to this Rockette workshop, and the first thing I learned was that it's not easy. And it's the job of the Rockette to make it look easy. And so I immediately took to this challenge of being able to tell my body exactly where to be. Like, the specificity of the challenge of being a Rockette was something that I didn't anticipate, and it's something that I immediately took to. So I did these workshops at the Ailey School, and then my junior year in the BFA program, I was hired as a Radio City Rockette. So I went and I did the show in Chicago. This is in 2005. I did the show on the road for a year. And then in 2005, I took a leave of absence for a semester from Fordham University to sort of get my foot in the door with this Rockette thing. But I still very much wanted to pursue concert dance. I wanted to maybe do the Ailey thing. I wanted to freelance. I worked with Puglisi Dance Theater for a while. So I sort of had my hand in both little pockets, you know? So I went into the Rockettes, took a year off from the Rockettes after I got my foot in the door to finish school. So I graduated in 2007 from Fordham and Ailey. And from there, I continued my work with the Rockettes. But again, I also was able to, in the off season, because at that time, the Rockettes was just about October through the new year, I would go and be a Rockette in season, and then I would bounce around and freelance, and I'd work with choreographers like Darrell Brown Moultrie. Again, I worked with Puglisi Dance Theater. And then eventually, with my work with the Rockettes, they offered a full-time position for the Rockettes. So in 2014, 13 or 14, I accepted a position as a full-time Rockette, where as a professional dancer, this world of being uncertain about how I'm going to pay rent next month, I sort of was able to do away with those worries as a professional dancer. And I found some sort of solid consistency in being a Rockette, and I really took to the work and the challenge of the specificity, and also working with such a large group of women was something that I really took to and I really enjoyed. So I sort of like took that turn and I went into Rockette land. I also did some musical theater. I toured internationally with West Side Story for a while and loved it. You know, that was sort of, I felt like I was living in a dream world floating around. But to have this consistency of this full-time Rockette gig sort of became really comforting to me, and I felt really at home, which I thought was kind of interesting that I would feel so at home in this Rockette world, coming from the person who I am and also coming from the Ailey School and going from this, you know, this very diverse community and mostly people who look like me to segueing into this Rockette thing where most people don't look like me, and to work in this world where your job is to look the same as everyone, but you're the one who looks different than everyone. So it was an interesting sort of personal battle that I knew going into it. I knew that I couldn't make the same mistakes as like the person to my right or the person to my left, innately because I'm the one person or the two people, one of two who are brown in the line. So I had to be on my game tenfold just to not draw that attention that I just innately draw from being different in a world where you're supposed to be the same, you know? So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey with the Rockettes. I've had some crazy, amazing opportunities. I was able to go to the White House and perform for Barack Obama at his holiday party. I met the president. I met Michelle Obama. I was able to speak and shake hands with them. I've met Oprah. I mean, to have these opportunities as a Rockette that I most likely would not have had in, you know, and in another job as a dancer. So that's been really rewarding. I also, just this past season in 2019, I was promoted to the dance captain, the assistant choreographer, and I was also a swing in the show. So what that entailed was me teaching the entire show to all of the Rockettes. So in teaching the entire show to all of the Rockettes, that meant that I had to learn the entire show, which I can likely say that I think I'm the only Rockette who's become a dance captain who has not been a swing previously. So usually there are steps that you sort of take to become a dance captain, and they just sort of threw me to the wolves. And it was one of the most vulnerable things that I've ever done, but it was also one of the most rewarding things to step away from the stage for the first time and not perform in every show, but to lead a huge group of women was something that it was a challenge for me that I didn't anticipate having that opportunity. But when that opportunity came, it was a moment for me to either fight or flight. And I chose to fight and go for it and put myself out there. And that was something that was really rewarding. What do I want to talk about? When I keep going back to you, also my dog is here, so you might hear a little snoring or something. It's not me, it's the dog. I keep going back to when Charmaine invited me to be a part of Black Dance Stories. And I was a little conflicted because yes, I'm a Black dancer, but then the questions, and this is something I always toy with in the first place, of me being a Rockette and that being such a big staple of my career as a dancer, but I'm not doing Black dance. But am I doing Black dance? I'm a Black dancer in a white space, but my experiences and my what I put into the work, and especially now being on the other side and teaching the work, there's a different intention behind it. Like I find myself saying different things than you'll ever hear from another dance captain. And so, yeah, I've just sort of been toying with this. Do I belong on this Black Dance Stories? You know, if I'm not doing Black dance right now necessarily. And I mean, I don't necessarily have an answer, but the thought that when I keep thinking about the Rockettes and what are the Rockettes, and it's an American tradition. And me as a Black American, I'm trying to figure out why I can't own that Rockette thing. And it's answer maybe like historically, it wasn't a Black space, but the more I think about it, the more I'm trying to find why it can't be. So that's something I've just been toying with and thinking about for a while. My dog's coming.
That's okay. Oh my gosh, these are questions that I would ask you. But
It's essential, right?
Here's a big question.
But it's been interesting trying to find and navigate that as, you know, as my career sort of has excelled with the Rockettes, and knowing what that means to people who look like me who come see the show, you know, and you only see a few of us. Please. Sorry, my dog's gonna.
How many total Rockettes are there?
Total, we have 80 women. So there are 2 casts of 36 on stage. That's my dog.
Love it. Hold the dog. The dog wants to be held.
Come here. Come on. This is Lula. She's the real star of the show.
Hi, Lula.
Okay, go over there. So there are 80 women total in the show, and you'll have on stage 36 women. So that's what you'll see across. And then we have additionally 4 swings per cast. So you'll have women off stage who, if somebody gets sick, hurt, or injured, or has a personal day, there are women who can pop in and do various positions so that no matter what, the audience sees the same show.
The same, yeah. And how many, you know the next question, right?
Yes, I do.
Come on. How many of y'all, of us?
It's interesting because, so this past season, we ended up welcoming 13 new Rockettes. And as far as women who look like us, there were 5 women of color in the line. But we have a couple of Filipinos in the line. We actually had, for the first time, a woman who was differently abled, where she didn't have a left hand. So it was the first time since the show started in 1933 where we had a Rockette who was missing a hand. So we were able to, I mean, she's such an excellent dancer, and it was really interesting to see how we didn't really have to modify the choreography for her. we have a scene called Ragdolls where we pick up blocks, but we had to just specially make a block for her so she could pick it up appropriately. But I think the company, for years, they've realized that there is a lack of color in the line and that we don't necessarily look like the city that we represent, and we represent New York City, and to look at a line of Rockettes and not see New York City. The company recognizes that it's off, and I think we've been doing workshops and we've been doing a lot of outreach and whatnot, but it's been trying to find out why, because it's not that there's a lack of dancers. It's just maybe people don't want to do the job. Why? Why isn't there the appeal, Yeah.
Do I dare ask you about the last inauguration?
That was a no for me. And that's, another interesting thing about working with the company that I work for is that it's corporate. So we are a for-profit company, and, we have got all of these sponsorships and partnerships and all of these insane legalities that in other jobs that I'd work, I'd never come across anything close to that. And so that does become another thing for you as a performer when things like the inauguration come up, and I'm like, how can I work for this company that's going to do that? And what it becomes is it's all of that stuff is so much more, it's above me, as far as those decisions. But the decisions that I can make is that there's no way you're going to see me or my face or my picture or any, I have control of what I do, and I have control of where I put myself. And that was one of those situations where I was like, nah, like, that's not for me.
That's not for you.
Yeah. And that was a tough moment for us as a company, because, you learn that when you are a part of this corporate organization, certain things like how you might feel, you aren't necessarily a factor. And that's been interesting. Just, it's a different world when there's this corporate backing behind it.
There was one time when I saw you on the bus and I was very excited.
And that's been another thing that's been so cool about working with a company as big as the Rockettes, is that there are so many opportunities that in wanting to pursue being a dancer, I didn't even think of these things. I didn't think that maybe one day I would be on the poster for the company. I didn't necessarily think that they would take a Black woman and make her the solo Rockette in this picture. From the years of seeing the Rockettes growing up, I didn't necessarily see that many women who looked like me. So I didn't necessarily think that I was going to go out there and audition and want to be a Rockette. I just thought that I would, I had tap shoes and I'm going to go to this workshop that they're hosting. So, it's funny how life sort of unfolds. And, working with this company, it's sort of, you end up being a representative and speaking for the company, and they throw you out there on a live television show and try and get you to sell tickets, and they sort of throw you to the wolves that way. And to learn about myself that I handle these high pressure situations well, I didn't know that about myself until I became a Rockette, until we went on the Today Show or Wendy Williams.
How are the conversations amongst those of color? And wait, I know Alicia, right?
Alicia, yes. Well, it's funny because it's like there's a sisterhood that is the Rockettes, and then there's a sisterhood within the sisterhood where we're so connected, and we know that our experiences innately are going to be different than the majority of the line, Yeah. And so we talk about being different. We talk about, placement in certain formations sometimes, there are, you start to learn the habits of the company, and as you start to sort of recognize who you are and where you fit in this picture. I think a big thing for me personally has been about, with my work with the Rockettes, I've sort of excelled in the company. Like, I understand formations, and I understand like picking up our type of choreography quickly. Like, so my brain has sort of, in some way, it's naturally geared toward that work. So I've excelled in that. And so I did the special performances earlier, but then I still had that question of like, oh, are they putting me in this performance because they need a woman of color? So I felt that there was a time in the company when I first started where it was sort of that like, oh, we need to have a Black person, an Asian person, a blonde and a blue and a red hair. You know, I know there was a moment where I was selected for that, but then it's sort of taking that moment and what do you do with it? And I think in that moment is when I was like, okay, this is your time to shine. This is your time to excel. This is your time to show them that, no, we don't need a woman of color in the line. We need Danelle to do this. And so I think it sort of thankfully quickly became known that, oh no, we need Danelle specifically to do this interview. And it doesn't matter if it's a show like Wendy Williams or the Today Show. So they've sort of recognized my assets as a performer, a dancer, and an intelligent person. But I know that somebody who doesn't look like me isn't thinking that when they get selected for opportunities. You know, I know that somebody like an Alicia is going to have the same exact thought of like, why are they calling me in for this? But I know that another dancer who is not a woman of color is not going to question, you know, those things. So we toe this weird line in this world that isn't necessarily ours, you know, but we own it. And
so are you a mentor now?
Yeah, we actually, well, I mean, for Rockettes, I think this year is my 15th year with the company. And I find it really funny because, isn't that crazy? 15 years. So I find that, you know, anytime there's a new Rockette that comes in, and especially if she's a woman of color, I've like, you know, I'm like, I want to get that little fight in her. And I'm like, come on, girl, let's go. Like, you know, and I walked in with that understanding that I knew I had to be not just good, I had to be excellent, because if my arm goes up and nobody else's arm goes up, they're going to know it's my arm that goes up, you know? So I knew that I couldn't make the same mistakes. I couldn't do the same thing. And I like, especially as dance captain now, when I work with the newer Rockettes who are coming in, and especially the women of color, I feel like I just have this fight for them, because I want them to succeed, and I want this company to become for them what it has become for me. And our world is so different, and especially coming from ALE training to like learning Rockette vernacular that makes no sense to me, made no sense to me when I came in. You know, I know it's learning a new language, and I want especially people who look like me to be able to get it and excel and shine like they would on a stage at ALE or, you know, whatever studio they came from.
It's so crazy that it's still that same line. You have to be better than.
It's just across the board. And I think with me continuing to push in this company and continuing to push in this like white space, it only can help to prove something, you know, like little by little. It's so frustrating, but I know that if I were an accountant, I would have to be better than everybody. I knew if I were, you know, a taxi driver, I'd have to be, you know, it's so unfortunate for us that we have to go above and beyond to prove our worth, but we make our worth so apparent, you know, just in everything that we do.
So I missed the speech at IABD, but I heard you rocked a lot of people's world.
Okay, so first I have to say I'm so happy that the Rockettes even showed interest in going to IABD, and that IABD showed interest in the Rockettes being there. Because I mean,
can we shout out Denise Saunders Thompson?
Yes, she's a saint. She is a saint, and all the work that woman puts in, and how successful and how beautiful these conferences are time and time and time again. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were able to go there and we taught classes. We were able to actually give out, this is 2018. Is that true? 2019, actually, we gave out a scholarship, and is a beautiful dancer. She's a little ballerina, Reagan Hutzel. And so we gave her a scholarship to our summer program, and she just killed it. And she ended up being hired at the audition in August of last year. And so she did the Rockette season last year. So, and she was in my cast and in my company. So I mean, she's like 18 years old. I feel like she's actually my daughter. But to see, you know, just even opening up and go for the Rockettes to go to Black talent. You know, I think that's such a huge and important step, because I feel like sometimes Black talent isn't coming to us because the appeal isn't there. And also for me, when I was hired because the Rockettes came to Black talent. They, you know, I didn't necessarily think that I was going to go and be a Rockette. You know, when I was younger, at my studio back in New Jersey, I had a dance teacher who was a Rockette, and never in a million years think I was going to be a Rockette, despite having a teacher who did that job, you know, but she was a blonde white woman. So it just didn't seem like the thing I was going to do. So to have us go to IABD and host workshops and actually get people to see and experience the choreography and feel that, oh, this is a challenge. It's our job to make it look easy, but it's a really demanding job. And if you take to it, you take to it. And you know, the attention to detail that we ask of the work is something that even if you don't become a Rockette, it's something that you can take wherever you go. And so I think it's important that we continue to have these relationships and that we push having these relationships.
Oh my gosh, so much. So
you know
much.
what else we've been doing, Charmaine?
No, tell.
It's a little bit of a pause right now because of COVID and everything, but we had been going to Ailey and I had been teaching workshops at Ailey. So it was a big old full circle moment. Unbelievable to go back in that building and hope to hire people to do what I do. That's pretty cool.
Wow, and there's no hugging, but I know you see people that you just want to say, when did you graduated? You graduated. When did you graduate, you old person?
2007. Yep. What happened?
Oh my
I should
God.
have said like last year or something.
Who do you see when you go in the building now?
Miss Person, she's our big connection there. There's also, I can't even remember her name. It's Miss Person's assistant who I remember from PPAS, the student program, who assists her, and she's a fully grown human being, which blew my mind.
Wait, yeah. I think Emily Hine?
Yeah, that's her.
Nick, who you know is a graduate, just dropped her name there so we could know. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Full circle indeed. Well, it's crazy, but it's time to bring Jawole in.
Yes.
How fast did that happen? I told you.
That went pretty quickly.
It went pretty quickly. So as Jawole is coming, talk about you. Hi, Jawole.
Hi.
So y'all, there are a lot of people here. A lot of people were patient and waited. Kate Mattingly is here. Danielle Burkholder's here. Ann Davidson, Tim Gilligan, Laura Marchese, Cynthia Oliver is here. Trebianne Pollard is here. Amy Costello, yay. Wendy Perrin, hey Wendy. Oh, wow. Judy Hussey Taylor, Hank Smith, what? Larissa Velez Jackson, Jamal Barnes, and Lori Pritchard, yay. Our friends are here. Our friends are here. Well, cheers, Jawole, welcome.
Thank you.
And I get to sit back and listen some more. Have fun, y'all.
All right.
Wow. Miss Jawole. I can't even explain what it feels like to be sharing a screen with you.
Well, I really loved hearing your story, your articulation of who you are and how you've come to be. And what I hear is so much confidence and the work that has earned that confidence. And so it's really, it's just fantastic to hear.
Thank you. I think when you said the work, that's the trigger, because I feel like it's always, if you make it about the work, always, all the other stuff just happens. You know, it's about the work. It's about, and though it seems what we do are two different ends of the spectrum, if it's about the work and it's about the story, if it's about, for me, doing a chart and making the formations, that's what it leads to all the other stuff just sort of unfolds when you make it about the work. Yeah.
You know, and there's another woman, you know, she was the first African-American that I had heard of going to the Rockettes. And I had so much prejudice about, like, you know, when students would say, I want to be a Rockette. I'm like, well, why would you come to college to dance? Do you want to be a Rockette? So I had so much, so many preconceived ideas about what that was. And Demoya Watson, I don't know if you've.
I know Demoya. Oh,
shout out to Demoya.
Love her.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. Yeah.
She was a student at Florida State. And it's so, you know, every now and then we just have to, our assumptions about what we think of a particular form, genre, people in it, you know, we have to be open to those assumptions changing and growing.
Yeah. And I will say, even with the Rockettes within, like, as choreographers have transitioned, the work has changed so drastically from, I'll say, from maybe like the early 2000s into where we are now. The work has become more demanding. And so the perception of, like, why do you want to do the Rockettes? It seemed, for, you know, the training that for instance, I grew up in, seemed so valid. And I can remember being in ballet classes after my first season with the Rockettes, and we'd be doing grand mots at the bar, and they'd be like, control your legs, ladies, we aren't the Rockettes. And I'd be like, I kind of am a Rockette. But the perception that the work is easy, you know, and I remember that happening, but I'm like, you need to come see the show, and you need to come see what we do. And just having that idea of being open to changing your perception is it's so huge. It's so huge.
If you could imagine yourself in another few years, maybe 10, what is this Rockette experience like open for you that might create a new pathway of something for you?
Well, it's funny. So I never saw myself as like a choreographer, a creator of movement. I never really saw myself as that. I saw myself more as a, you know, work with a choreographer to help unfold. Like I feel like when you work with directors or choreographers, you sort of become an essence of them, and you sort of tap into their brain waves and try and create that way. But as far as me creating on my own, I never really thought too much about that until more recently. And I think it is because of, you know, taking that transition. I also liked being on the stage very much. So to take that transition and now become the assistant choreographer and start seeing and working with our charting and making formations and all, it's like a big puzzle to me. And that it sort of opened a different part of my brain that I didn't know I was going to have to use. But now that it's been tapped into, my brain starts going in that direction, which I never, if anybody would have asked me 10 years ago if I would think about choreographing anything, I would have never in a million years. You know, but
that skill set, maybe the Olympics. You know?
Oh my God, that would be amazing. But it's true that it really opens up. Yeah, it opens up a world, you know. And I watched a video with an interview of you, and you said the risk is like sitting on the edge of failure. And I love that so much, because that's the biggest lessons you learn are right there, or so far that I have learned. And that's something that when I accepted the position of being a dance captain, and well, first there was a whole audition process that happened. And I remember the choreographer asking me if I thought I could do the job. And I remember her saying, or my response to her was just, if it's my job, of course I can do it. And I don't know where that confidence came from, but I think it is that, you know, like being the women that we are and who we are, we do have to try tenfold. We can't walk in and like just half go at anything. We aren't afforded that ability that other people are. And
that's an interesting thing, because it's a thing that that I grapple with my students, that am I giving them tools to survive by saying, you know, as a Black person, you have to work 10 times harder, or am I perpetuating
Mm.
a system that has creates this emotional labor that sometimes, you know, moves into areas that is not sustainable.
Mhm.
And so I question, like, am I supporting, am I helping, am I enabling a system?
Mhm.
And I go back and forth between, you know, what that is, and at the same time it's like, well, I also don't want to, you know, like, I don't want them to aspire to mediocrity,
Mhm.
uh, because even if it was an option for us, why would you aspire to it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not an option for us.
Mhm.
But it's a place that I, you know, I'm kind of in many ways philosophical kind of person, always weighing these different things.
Yeah, but you know, it becomes, it's that thing of, if I don't mention this and if I don't speak on this, what can become? But I mean, the truth is, that's the truth, you know, like the fact of the matter. And I guess, yeah, that's just what it is. And until it's not that, I feel like it can't hurt to know that you just have those little tools in your pocket that you can pull out when you need
Absolutely.
them. It can't hurt.
You know, there's a prayer, a Black woman's prayer that we don't usually say in mixed company in front of white folks, but the prayer is, Lord, give me the confidence of a mediocre white man.
It's true though.
And you know, and it's, you know, because we can't be mediocre. We won't last, we won't survive, it won't, you know, we have to step up to the plate even in a different way. And I remember Louise Roberts, for those people who know that name, she was the director of Clark Center for many years. And when I first was starting, she pulled me into her office and said, you know, I want to tell you something. And I was like, okay, what did I do? And she said, emphatically, you have the right to fail. Don't let anyone take that away from you. As an artist, you're going to have great successes, but you're also going to fail, and you have the right to do that. And that is part of the process. And stay strong when that happens. And it was the fact that, you know, that, yeah, it was a moment where I understood that don't stop taking risk.
Yeah.
Don't come to a place that is always safe. And sometimes I have taken risk and it just fallen flat on my face publicly. That's part of the work.
Yeah.
And you gain more tools about recovering from that at
Agreed.
your age.
Yep. It's true. And we just got to keep putting those tools in our pockets. But it's true, just taking that moment of owning failure.
Or what, sometimes I use the term catalytic failure, because what we sometimes call failure, it catalyzes something. So then you have to go back and think about what it was, where did something go off, and then it leads you to something really exciting and powerful. I see Charmaine there. Charmaine muted.
I hate this. This when you say, I see Charmaine.
I'm like,
there's love there. There's love for me though, right?
Yes, big love.
Always.
Oh, okay. As I'm sure you can imagine, the chat is getting funky. Good funky. Shannon is here. Shannon Judson is here. Gaynell Sherrod is here. Georgiana Pickett is here. Janet Wong is here. And Melanie Person is quietly here, loving both of you.
I miss Person.
I know. All right, Danelle, see you in a little bit. Have fun watching. Miss Jawole, cheers again.
Thank you.
Did you finish your tea yet?
No, it's slowly sipping.
And it's not chamomile, y'all. Jawole was gonna drink chamomile tonight.
Would have been interesting. I'd have been very chill.
Hey, Oh, Jawole, so nice to have you. Introduce yourself and
It's an honor. First of all, it's an honor to be here. And what a just a beautiful woman Danelle is, and just to hear her story. So I'll introduce myself and describe myself. Jawolle Willa Jo Zollar. I am on the stolen land of the Lenape in Brooklyn, New York. I am a brown-skinned woman, um, turning 70 in just a few days. My hair is a hot mess of something. It's growing, I'm letting it grow out. So it's just like, I started to put a scarf on. So it's gray and just wiry and kind of like, I don't know what's going on there with the hair. I have on spirally earrings with red, kind of purplish lipstick. And I've got a burgundy shawl because I got cold around me. I'm in my apartment in Brooklyn, which you will see a lot of yellow. I love the color yellow. I love color. It makes me happy. So I often have a lot of color. I am the daughter of Dorothy Zallar and Alfred Zallar. On the Zallar side, we go back to 1836, I believe. We finally found the Zallar who owned the farm that my people were enslaved. It was only two, small farm, small German. And on my mother's side, the Lockharts, we go back to 1860 from the Lockhart plantation in Texas. So on the Zollar side, South Carolina, inland South Carolina, and on the Lockhart side, my mother's side, the Lockhart plantation in Lockhart, Texas. So if any people out there, last name is Lockhart, we probably got some connection. If your last name is Zollar, we probably got some connection. And when I think about my dance background and who I am, I am a woman who grew up in segregation. So my experiences growing up in Kansas City, Missouri, were in an all-Black community, all Black schools, a few white teachers, a few white shop owners, no social contact with white folks whatsoever. In fact, I thought Kansas City was this huge, big Black community. I didn't understand that we were actually squished in what people call the inner city. So I grew up with, my mother was a dancer, a woman who had danced and sang and played the piano, jazz. Jazz was all in our family. And so my sister and I grew up dancing at the Joseph Stevenson's dance school. And it was something, moving was something that interested me. So I also ran track, drill teams, anything that had to do with movement. I didn't understand dance as a profession. It was just something that I loved to do. And my sister Donna and I grew up, and we grew up dancing together, and we were part of a floor show, if people know that term. I grew up dancing, performing from the age about 7 or 8 in a floor show. It's like a post-vaudeville kind of show. So there was usually a comic MC. Sometimes that person was a female impersonator. Sometimes it was Gorgeous George. I can still see him. There was a stripper, or a exotic dancer. They were two different forms, sometimes both. There was always a tap dancer. For those who know the name, Luther Fontaine Riggins was one of the people that we grew up dancing with. And there was something like a flash act, like the Nicholas Brothers. There was often a blues singer. And my sister and I were part of the Kitty Act. You know, there was always the Kitty Act. And we would dance, and it was live music to the band. And then we would improvise. And the thing about the improvisation is, you know, people would put money on the stage for you. If they liked what they were doing, they would put money. So I learned something about that very early, but I also learned that I remember there's a couple of times when a particular stripper, if she got vulgar, she would get all sorts of applause and hoops and collars and very little money. And And so I learned not to get caught up in applause, standing ovation, any of that, but that Mr. Stevenson would talk about the integrity of the performance, that you had to find your style, you had to find your way. And when audiences could, when they would see that you were tapping that, you would get money. And you know, I had my thing that I would do. My sister had her thing that we would do. And so I was performing for, 7, 8, all the way through high school. I performed with this review and never really thought of it as a possible career. It just was what we did in our community. And I remember that I went to college, and then life happened, and I dropped out of college, and I started working for AT&T as a file clerk, something. And one day, you have these magical moments in your life. One day, I saw myself get up out of my chair, go to my supervisor and saying, I'm leaving, I'm going to be quitting at this date. And I said, I'm going back to school. And she said, oh, to do what? I said, I'm going to major in dance. I came back to my seat and I thought, what just happened? I hadn't applied for school. I hadn't auditioned. I hadn't done any of that. It literally just felt like something moved me. And I came to UMKC. I met Milton Myers. Milton Myers, we were dancing together, and he had a company called Black Exodus. And, Black Exodus was this company that also had poetry and song. The Voices of Exodus was the choir. And I was in this kind of group of Black bohemian, intellectual, political, radical thinkers, creators, makers. And that's kind of the Kansas City growing up in this all Black environment, coming into this, Black bohemian and white dance major environment. And I was always the nerdy bookworm. We didn't have that term nerd, but I was the bookworm. I was the researcher. But in college, I discovered that I could reinvent myself, and then I became the partier. Like, I could party, I could hang out, I could be with the cool kids because of this Black bohemian. We weren't like it, but we just were carving out an artistic identity. And it, for me, started making something really deep in me, because it's really when I started reading voraciously about the Black experience in the and bringing it into my world very deliberately. I had lived it growing up in Kansas City, but I hadn't taken this view back to be able to not only live in it, but to see what it had to offer me as a place to draw inspiration from, but a place also to look at the inequity, like what racism does, and to look at systemic racism. And though I didn't know those words or understand it, I didn't understand it, but I knew something was being done to me and my community and my family that was racist, that was based on white supremacy, though that's not the words that we used. And I also, from the generation that as we came into white institutions, we were given a certain kind of armor from being in our communities with one another together, and saying, okay, we're gonna go do this, y'all. And we knew we were going to experience racism. We knew it, we were not surprised by it. And so as I grapple with young people now who are surprised by it, or who think, the mythology that I thought it didn't exist anymore. So when they experience something overtly, the pain, I see that pain. And at the same time, it's like in many ways, I became it normalized. And that's also dangerous too, that these young people are not normal. They're like, no, this is not normal. And even though I was in political groups and we fought against it, one of the things that, one of the traumas that I was reliving as we were going through the Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, you bury things. And I was thinking about this guy that the first guy I kind of made out with, you made out, but you didn't go all the way. He was shot and killed by the police when he was 14. He was shot in the back, Bernard. And one of my best friends died from an illegal abortion. So these were things that were very much a part of our experiences. They were the traumas of our experience. I don't want this passed on. So if that means that there is a younger generation that is saying no, in a ways that we were saying no, and maybe what I've done is begin to normalize or cope, or it's like, how do we create this balance? Because life is going to be hard. It's going to be tough. I want you to have the armor. I want you to have the strength, and I want you to know how to go out there and kick butt. And I want you to have that community, that strength that comes from the community, and the strength you gain from swimming upstream. You gain strength. I don't want you to only have to swim upstream. So I have to do my work, and we have to do our work generationally in the ways that we think and process together, so that we make a different world. I don't want to hear another story of an unarmed Black man or Black woman or trans person or child, as Tamir Rice, being shot and killed. I don't want to hear another story about the way internalized racial, the manifestation of that we turn on ourselves, and that violence that happens within our community. So I'm in this place where, I am an artist, and an artist means all of that. I'm a choreographer. It means all of that. It means that I party, not as much anymore. That's changed. But all of those things, the healing, the long conversations, the philosophical ways that we interrogated our lives and our potential. I remember having all night conversations about Pharaoh Sanders. And he talked, in one of his liner notes, he talked about the perfectibility of man. And literally those were the words. So I'm saying man in the way that it was written. And we talked about, is this desirable? What do we want? I think some of the things of my generation are very, very philosophical in nature of the discussions. Now, also, maybe that was also part of the time in the 70s of altered consciousness, and how that would take us deeply into subject matter. But it wasn't frivolous. It was about changing the world. It was about, where is our place in this? And how are we going to change the world spiritually, as dancers, as choreographers, as political people? It was a group of basketball players that were a part of our circle, as basketball players, as sports people. The house, the house that I in college, we were a nexus for a lot of gatherings, and we had men who had just come back from Vietnam who were coming from the Air Force Base, and that's where I learned DAP. That's when we learned these rituals of DAP. We had people who were from the Art Institute of Kansas City come to our parties. We had people who were very involved in the Black Panthers and those movements in our parties. So this combustion, I think, is what formed the beginning formulation of urban bush women. That it is not Black identity is not a singular thing. It is multiple things. And what my experiences are growing up in the 50s and 60s in Kansas City, Missouri, are going to be different than someone who grew up in the 90s and 2000s in suburbia, or even in Kansas City. Well, Kansas City might be still kind of the same. It's still a place of, it's very segregated. So we're going to have these experiences. Can we talk to one another? Can we create with one another? Can we hear and see when one generation is going like really fast and the other generation is saying, let's be strategic about this, y'all. Can we be in that fire together and be able to listen and heal? So that's what I've been thinking about a lot as I think about my dance background, that these women who were either the strippers or the exotic dancers, it wasn't a contradiction, that sensuality and could be a part of it. But if you got vulgar, you know, that there's an art to it. There was an art to the striptease, to the tease. And that was a thing that I grew up with. Comics, you know, and around my family, there's a lot of comics. My niece Keisha Zallar, if you go back and look on Netflix, The Astronomy Club, you'll see the show that she was on and part of the creation of. So we use comedy a lot. And it's healthy. We laugh. We do that gut laugh where you fall on the floor, tears are rolling down your eyes. And honestly, growing up in a Black community, I did not know that in my first experiences with white folk, which were in college, I didn't know they didn't do that. I was like, you know, I'm laughing and falling. I'm like, I couldn't figure. I was like, I had to learn all of this social cueing about how white culture without even, it was like, where's that belly falling, you know, tears running down, hitting your head on the floor because it's so funny. I didn't realize that wasn't part of white culture as I experienced it in Kansas City. I didn't realize that when I was invited to a party for white folk, I would sit around and wait for the party to begin. And it was like they're drinking and talking. I wonder when are they going to start dancing? Okay, they're still drinking and talking. It's been 2 hours now. When are we going to start? Because a party in my community meant you were going to dance. And you were also going to have some food. And you were going to have something some, you know, spirits, or however that was defined for you. You want to have that. And I just couldn't believe it was drinking and talking. I was like, this is a party? And so I became kind of interested in trying to understand this fluency in white culture and what, you know, I'm never going to be a part of it, but what, you know, what is this? It was like a curious, in some ways, exotic thing, you know, to me, because it's nothing that I experienced. So all of the norms of what I understood were coming into a white society, a white culture. Those norms were not there. So that's why we had our thing on the side. So that's why we had Black Exodus as a company, as a dance company, when we were majoring in dance, so that we had our way of expressing ourselves in the way that we define ourselves. And we were not seeking permission or trying to fit into a norm of white culture. Those are the things that I've always gravitated to. I'm gonna get this as much learning as I can inside of white culture, because I'm a curious person and I wanna know and I'm curious. And so, okay, this can give me something. And I have to stay connected at the root, at the root of who I am and what that gives me as an artist. Yeah.
Today I was in a conversation about art. Oh gosh, I want to say this in a nice way. Folks telling their stories, telling our own stories, and what audiences walk away with.
Mm.
And I'm curious, because you've been at this. When you tell your story, what is your response when audience, any kind of response from an audience? What do you then think? Do you engage? And if you engage, what happens?
Well, you know, for me, it's the act of telling. It's the act of telling. It's the work. It's the work of the telling. I don't know how people are going to respond. I certainly know that certain audiences hear it, see it, and connect deeply with it. I know that there's other audiences that are maybe I could look at, you know, particularly like when we were touring Europe and it was maybe new, but people would still come up to me with very moved
Mhm.
by the work. So they didn't react in the audience in the ways that Black folk gonna act. Didn't mean they weren't moved, didn't mean they weren't receiving it. So I didn't so much worry about, and I still don't, I do have, I mean, you know, I kind of got some thick skin from swimming upstream. So when, you know, some reviewers write some stupid stuff and they have just written some stupid stuff about the work, um, it's, you know, I just, okay, that's their stupidity. Um, and you just keep on stepping. Um, does it hurt our community? Yeah. As dancers, it hurts when people don't have a depth. And I did something at a Dance Critics Association, probably to my own detriment. I think it was in 91 or 92. And I was making the point of when we tell our stories and we work with the same amount of abstraction that a white artist might work with, or more or less, it's not our responsibility if you don't know. So the example I gave was it was something Lori Carlos had done, and I said, okay, I'm going to paint a picture for you, and then I'm going to ask you what this is, and I want the Black folks to be silent because you know what it is. And so and I asked, so it was, I said, it's a Black woman in her Sunday best standing up, saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 9, 7, 5, 6, 7, 3, 2. And I asked the white folks, I said, so what is that? Crickets, nobody knew. Then I said, okay, Black folk, what is it? So a woman playing the numbers on, it was so clear. The image was not abstract to them. It was not abstract to them. So for many of the white critics, they didn't, rather than thinking like, I don't know what it is, it must be a deficit of something that you did. And I had to let go of that. You don't get it, you don't understand, it's not my problem. It even when I don't get the funding, I still have to stay on the path, because I will say I did spend some time getting lost on the path, you know, because you get confused like, oh, well, maybe I need to do this. And I would say anybody out there, you know, that'll happen. It may happen. It's all right. Come back, come back, recenter, come back, refocus. Because you can't worry about who gets it and who doesn't. You worry about the integrity, the work, the way it speaks. You can feel it in the room when something is electric. When an idea is electric, the whole group can feel it. And so how do we, that's what I'm interested in. I'm never interested in being cruel to people on the stage. And that's a place where comedy can sometimes, you know, veer towards cruelty. I'm never interested in attacking people on the stage or for people feeling, at least I'm not interested in attacking them. They may feel attacked. Sometimes they just feel attacked just by me being a Black woman on the stage. They feel attacked. So there's a kind of ethics around what it is I'm saying and how I want to say it, but it's centering in my experience and the telling. It's the truth telling that I think is our work.
And especially now, because their emotions are so fragile.
Yeah.
You say, tell the truth, do the art, tell the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I shade to that. Well, guess what? It's time for Danelle to come back.
Hi, Danelle.
Back Danelle. And Carol Marie Webster is here.
Oh, Carol, she's one of the founding members of the Urban Bushwomen.
Yes. And Zane Booker is here.
Oh, fabulous.
Oh, wow.
Folks keep coming. All right. So here's when I try very hard to sift through the chat to find questions. Very hard. However, there might be some fabulous just hey to y'all. And again, thank you everybody who is patient and came back. All right. For you, Danelle, how do you negotiate what you described having to be the same and different simultaneously in your Rocket work? That's from Cynthia Oliver.
Ooh. I think I know I'm different, you know, I know I'm different. So it has to be about the work. So it has to be about, okay, just make sure the path of your arm is exactly right. Make sure you're exactly where you're supposed to be spatially. And I know that I stand out, you know, just by what I look like. But I also know that there is something special about when you look at the Rockettes and you look at the line, there are, whether you're a Black woman or not, there are certain people who your eye goes to innately, and that is, they're not doing the choreography differently. There's nothing that they're changing about the movement, but there's that extra something and that extra whatever it is that makes them the performer, the person, the whoever they are. And so your eye goes to certain people. And so I also understand that. And I think that's a good thing. And it's that spark that people and performers have that you can't teach, you know? And so I hope to, in my effort to look one with everyone, I also hope to have that, I feel I have that spark, and I hope that that comes across to the audience. And it's more about standing out for that reason rather than standing out for the Black girl who messed up, or you know, who's changing choreography to look a little like the star of the show, because it's not about being the star of the show. But within that, there are different sparks and different little fires that are always enjoyable, I think, to watch.
I think you answered this question from Wendy Perrin already, but how many other women of color were in the Rockets when you were there?
Well, I'm still there.
Exactly. Since you're there, probably when you began. Maybe.
Yeah. So it varies year to year. So my first year, we were in a smaller cast. There were only 18 women as opposed to 36. I was one of two, and the other one was like very fair skinned. So I felt like the only one. But then there were other years where there'd be like, with the whole cast, there'd be 8 women. Last year, I think there were five women of color, and then we had like our two Filipinos. We have a girl who's Mexican American. So depending on what's going on, I mean, I will say that it's never enough, and it's always very apparent that it's never enough. So hopefully we're digging, and we're trying to just get out there. And I, over the years, I've had some tough conversations that need to be had, and I think the more I realize and see that I am an asset to the company, and I keep trying to be an asset to the company, there's no reason why we can't try and make the company better and stronger and more reflective. So it's a fun negotiating battle. I'm trying how far
activism, and you're going to learn from my sister Jawole. So this is from Cynthia Jawole. Speaking of, how do you make sense of contemporary modes of activism that are in some ways so different than your generation? And she also said, when is the party going to start? But that's a big question, right? Which is kind of what Danelle is having to do.
Yeah, I wonder what I'm trying to think of maybe I need more information about what she sees as different. The things when I looked at, I live close to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So the protests were taking place. The differences I see is like when I was in the 60s, particularly in what people were calling the riots or what we were calling the rebellions, they were mostly all Black. That would be the difference. They were in the Black community, and they were all Black, and I had to really separate out for myself. I was having post-traumatic stress from the helicopters, because in the 60s, when the rebellions happened, the police helicopters were flying our neighborhood, and they were shooting at people. And so the helicopters, I'd hear these helicopters every night, and this panic, like, all of that. And I was like, I was starting to, like, I want the protesters to go away. And I was like, no, I don't want them to go away.
Yeah.
So what is this going on? And I had to realize it was from the trauma of the 60s and 70s. The rebellions in Kansas City started after Martin Luther King was assassinated. And yeah, it was very traumatic. And so I'd maybe like to know what's different, and what Cynthia sees as different in what they're doing, or the contemporary ways of protest. Now, maybe some of the calling out things on social media, that's certainly different. I'm not on social media, so I hear third, fourth, fifth, I choose not to let that come in. So I don't know so much about that. But I'd like to know what are the ways that Cynthia, that you feel are different than maybe what I feel like I experienced, at the time.
I remember sending a text to Danelle when the inauguration was happening. And I think, Danelle, help me if I'm saying this wrong, but that was your protest to say, no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be part of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think in that way,
yeah,
the young folks.
Yeah, it's bold. It's bold. I mean, but I remember the first time I saw Daniel Nagrin was at an anti-Vietnam War protest. He was performing the Peloponnesian Wars, an excerpt from that he had. So I saw dance I saw modern dance at protest. I heard singers. At that time, and particularly in Kansas City, across the country, the Black Panthers were going into Black church services and taking them over and saying, changes has to happen. And, they were like, so there was a lot of radical as well as other kinds of protests. So
we'll get back to Cynthia on that one for more, right?
I'm curious to know. I'm excited by what I see young people doing. If there's anything I'm concerned about, is reactive and not strategized. Sometimes I want to see, just take a step back and a little bit more strategy. Rosa Parks was strategy. There were young Black women, 15, 16-year-old teenagers who were refusing to give up their seats. The civil rights movement of that time knew Rosa Parks was going to be a figure that would gather and garner the support. So there's sometimes strategy, and those young Black women they probably gave other people the courage, like, yeah, no, this is wrong, y'all. We're gonna call this out.
Well, Cynthia answered. Yeah. And then I have a question for you, Danelle. Cynthia said she was thinking about exactly what you said, the social media. How would they responded? Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of think the gift and the curse is social media, because it's so broad spreading that it might even be harder to centralize, because there's so many different pockets and sects who are sort of want the same goal, but wanting to go about it in different ways. So how do you strategize when it's amazing that broad spectrum people are on the same page with wanting to have this change, but not on the same page with how do we go about that, because there's so many different pockets. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not, the social media is, I'm still trying to figure out how not to be judgmental about it, It's not for me. When I hear a lot of the young people who are dealing with issues around anxiety, and I'm like, how much are you on social media? And I want to, and it's not singular. This is not a singular remedy, but it's like, get off. And so that you can take in some other kinds of things. So I don't know. We probably would have just been just as anxious. We had news coming at us like all the time in that way of everything all over the world.
Yeah.
Whew, it's a lot. So, I make a choice that I'm not on it. I tried to come on Instagram for a little bit this summer. I think I might have lasted 4 months or 3 months. And I was like, or maybe 4 posts. And I was like, I can't.
Okay, so listen, I'm gonna try, we've asked our beautiful people to hang in there with us. So I'm gonna try to drop maybe 1 or 2 questions, but then we're gonna bring Nick and Kimani back. And this is, I asked you this question, Jawole, but Wendy was asking about the response from the audience, if I can find the question again. But as a Rockette is a huge space, can you feel the audience response to the show?
Oh yeah, it's so we have 6,000 seats in the theater, which is the theater at Radio City is unbelievable. You walk in and it's its own thing. Like without the Rockettes, Radio City is its own thing. But you can see the audience, and our audience is not necessarily the like typical theater audience where you sit down in your seats and have the decorum that mama made you sit down. But you see the little girls dancing in the aisles and running up and down, doing the choreography with you. We can see even the ushers in the back of the house because they see every single show. They do the choreography with us. And so you actually you see the experience that the audience gets to have. It's huge, but it's amazing to be able to watch.
There's some fabulous shout outs here. Thanks for that, Danielle. There's some great shout outs here too. Gaynell said, your hair is doing what it does, dancing freely. I love it. And Larissa Velez Jackson, wow, what Danielle has achieved for 15 years being mentor and dance captain is capital letters, such important Black art work. Danelle's dance, crafts, womanship, and advocacy is on fire.
Oh.
Wow. All right. This is great, and we could keep going, but we shouldn't. Nick and Kimani, come back in. And sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but we really appreciate you all being here. We really, 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 really do. Danelle and Jawole, did we forget anything? Do you need to send out some more shout outs? Anything that the beautiful audience should know?
I just want to thank all of you.
Martin Wexler is here. Sorry, Martin Wexler joined too. Sorry. Go ahead, Danelle, I interrupted.
I just want to thank all of you. And Jawole, it is such an honor. I'm so grateful. And you are a philosopher. So I feel like I kept getting closer to the screen trying to soak you up. It's such an honor. I'm so grateful.
I'm thrilled to be here. And I remember when I was in 7th grade and somebody had said something about, I can't remember what it was, and a young guy said to me, that philosophizing Willa Zollar. It's been there for a long time. The ability to see many perspectives.
Yeah.
And to hold that and at the same time hold your truth. So I thank you, Charmaine, for coming up with this, and all this incredible staff for inviting us to tell our truth and speak our truth tonight.
Oh, yay. Yay, Black Dance Stories team. Yay, yay. So, because it's almost, go ahead, Kimani.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
And we can't sing the whole song because Caitlin told us rights and concerns and all of those things. But happy birthday, Jawole.
Thank you. And on my birthday is the convergence of Jupiter and Saturn for the first time in 800 years in what they call the Bethlehem star. It will look like one huge star. That happens on December 21st. Go out and see the night sky. It won't happen for another 800 to 1,000 years.
Okay, so we got to do it now. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it was Diane Harvey's birthday, and last week it was Abdel's. And so drop the happy birthdays and we'll read them to Jawole. And Jawole, Abdel just turned 72. Did you know that?
1950 babies.
Come on. Somebody was busy. Just saying. Well, y'all, we're going on a little break and we hope to have our website up so that you won't miss us. So stay tuned. We'll let you know. We're going to get that website up and going, and it will be blackdancestories.org. We're thanking the people that have been here since June that have supported us, and we fixing to come back in January. We cannot wait for 21, right?
Yes.
Right. And the guests will be Paloma McGregor, Usha Sarzano, Bill T. Jones, and Darrell Grand Moultrie. Boom!
Darrell.
I know. So a big cheers and a big thank you again for your patience, for being here. We love you too, Danelle and Jawole. Thank you. Yay, BDS.
Danelle and all of this
So
team.
wonderful.
Fabulous.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next
Bye.
year.